Welcome. So today we're going to learn why the kidneys turn your blood, filter your blood, and turn it into urine. And how does that take place? All right, so let's look at this. The functional unit of your kidney is known as the nephron. The nephron is located within the pyramids of the kidney, and you have blood that comes into the kidney and it will go into the nephron, and specifically the part of the nephron that this blood goes into is known as the glomerulus. It has Bowman's capsule associated with it, and when you lump the two together, you will see in literature that they call it the renal corpuscle. All right. And so basically the blood comes in from the bottom of this diagram and it goes into Bowman's capsule. And that tube that brings it in there is known as your afferent with an A, your afferent arterial. All right. So blood goes into the nephron that way. But it also has to leave the nephron, and it's going to leave the nephron through the efferent with an E arterial. So it arrives with the afferent with an A, and it exits with E, right? With the efferent with an E. And so the blood goes into this corpuscle, and within that corpuscle, basically what happens is the plasma of the blood, the liquid portion of the blood, then gets pulled and filtered to form what is known as filtrate. So the whole rest of the system going through the nephron, we are going to have a fluid known as filtrate. All right, so not urine yet. We went blood plasma to filtrate and then to urine, all right, as we add more waste products to it. Now, that blood vessel that came in will exit and it will end up kind of twisting and turning all through that nephron. And that twisting and turning creates capillary beds. And those are important because as the nephron pulls fluids and waste products from that filtrate, right, to continue to make its way into urine, it will also pull other substances that are needed by the body and put it into the blood supply there at the capillaries. And that way it can exit through a vein and be purified blood. Right, so that's what's happening in the nephron. And let's look at this. It's best thought of in 6 steps. That's the easiest way that I can break it down. All right, so if we think of this as a 6-step process going through the nephron, you should be able to make your way through and understand the structures of the nephron, at least 6 of them, and then figure out what's happening. So we're going to start off at number 1. And we already talked about number 1, right? The glomerulus. And it has Bowman's capsule together. It's known as the renal corpuscle. It's going to create filtrate from the blood plasma, the liquid portion of the blood. And so here you're going to have small solutes that are filtered, right? And that's what gets pulled from that blood plasma to then go through the rest of this network that we have. From there, we're going to go to number 2. Number 2, what you'll notice is that the tube that forms there is very twisted. Because it's very twisted at number 2 and number 5, it is known as convoluted. Convoluted tells me that it's twisted. So this twisted network will also be named because of where it's located. And in this case, number 2 is very close to number 1, so it's proximal. Remember, like with your fingers, the bones of your fingers, how you had proximal closer to the point of origin and distal closer to your fingertips because it's further away from the point of origin? The same thing applies here. Number 2 is proximal and number 5 is your distal convoluted tubule, right? So here at your proximal convoluted tubule, number 2, we are going to see that this twisted area will reabsorb important nutrients, ions, water, nutrients. It will reabsorb those and send it to the blood because your body needs those. But it's going to remove waste and it's going to send that waste to the filtrate. So it stays within this tubule and it's going to end up going to filtrate to eventually turn into urine. And so it's going to remove toxins and it's going to adjust the pH of the filtrate and pull things to help adjust for the pH. And then we're going to come down to number 3. When we come down, we are descending. So this structure here at number 3 is known as our descending limb. The descending loop of Henle is another name for it because this whole thing is the loop of Henle, but we're the descending limb of it. And it's only permeable to water. So this thick portion is where number 3 is located on the descending limb of the loop of Henle, and it's only permeable to water. So here we are pulling water. Water gets pulled from the filtrate. And then we turn and we go up, and we're ascending now. So this is the ascending at number 4, the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. And it's permeable to salts, but it's not permeable to water. So it pulls sodium and chloride from the filtrate. And then we make our way back up to this twisted area. We're at number 5, so we know it's convoluted because it's twisted. And we are further from where we started. So this is our distal convoluted tubule. So this distal convoluted tubule, or this distal tubule, is further away from the point of origin. It is very selective on what it does. So it is going to look at pH and electrolyte balance and be selective on what it can pull, what it can secrete and absorb. And that will determine what will continue into the filtrate and also get pulled from the filtrate. So something that it might want to get rid of are things that contain nitrogen. So your nitrogenous waste, right? So urea and ammonia, but then it may want to conserve calcium and sodium. And then it's going to push the filtrate to number 6. And number 6 on your list will end up being your collecting tubule. That collecting tubule is also known as a collecting duct. And so it collects the fluid, it reabsorbs the solutes, and you have water as well from the filtrate. And it will prepare this fluid to exit the kidneys. And that's when it exits, we're talking about urine now. And so that urine will then exit. So let's look at that. How does that work? Well, your kidneys connect to 2 tubes that then take it to the bladder. And those 2 tubes, one on each side that takes it to the bladder, end in ER. And just like the bladder ends in ER, right? The tubes that connect the kidney to the bladder end in ER. So these will be your ureters. So your ureter on the left and your ureter on the right connect to the bladder. And once the urine is stored in the bladder, you then have the urethra that will allow that urine to exit the body. Let's review it real quick. All right, so we were at number 1. That's going to be the glomerulus. It's going to have Bowman's capsule. It's going to also be known as your renal corpuscle. You have the convoluted tubules that are tubule that's close to that Bowman's capsule. And so that's going to be proximal, your PCT there. You're going to come down to number 3 at the descending loop of Henle. You're going to come back up, your ascending at number 4, the ascending loop of Henle. You're going to make your way to some more twisted tubule, right? So it's convoluted, but we're further from the point of origin. So this is our distal convoluted tubule, also known as just the distal tubule, number 5. And then we make our way to the collecting duct at number 6. So 6 simple steps to make urine. So you understand how the kidney will make urine based off of the nephron. But why does it do it, you ask? Well, it's pretty simple. The kidneys are going to work to help regulate blood pressure. They're going to work to help control solute and fluid balance, acid and base balance, and therefore control the pH. They are going to work to metabolize drugs. They're going to excrete drugs. They are functioning to control metabolic waste excretion, right? So all of that nitrogenous waste. They are going to aid other systems. So it regulates blood pressure, so it deals with something with your circulatory system, but it also deals with your endocrine system, right? It deals with other systems. So that gives you an idea of why the kidneys are important, why the nephron specifically, that functional unit of the kidney, is important, and how it works.